Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining me today for the Cannon Resources Investor Webinar. My name is Katrina Griffiths, and today I'm joined by Steve Lynn, the CEO of WA nickel exploration company, Cannon Resources. Steve will be running through the Cannon investor presentation this morning, followed by a Q&A session. To ask a question throughout the presentation, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Steve, I will now hand it over to you.
Thank you, Katrina. Good morning, everybody. This is an investor presentation with the latest information that we released to the market on Monday regarding our Sabre deposit. So I'll just launch it now. So this is the usual disclaimer that we ask everyone to read at their leisure. Just some quick investment highlights about Cannon. So Cannon have nickel resources in the ground. We've got 134.1 kilotons of contained nickel at our Fisher East project in Western Australia, and then we have another 9.3 kilotons of contained nickel at our Collurabbie project in Western Australia. Both of those projects are nickel sulfide resource, over 1%. The Fisher East deposit has got a global grade of about 1.8% nickel. And the Collurabbie deposit has a grade of about 1.6, but it's the Nova style of intrusive nickel play, where it's a nickel, copper, cobalt play. So the copper grade is around about 1.2 with a bit of cobalt as well and a bit of PGE. So PGE for Collurabbie is around about 2.5 grams per tonne. Most of our work is occurring at Fisher East, though. That's the main play for us. We've got a very substantial and scalable resource there, and we're doing all our active exploration there currently. So since our IPO last year, we've just gone 12 months last week. Since our IPO, we've discovered 56.1 kilotons of contained nickel of new resource at Fisher East at $104 a nickel tonne exploration cost. So both of those metrics are industry leading and represent the exploration scale and massive amount of upside for Fisher East. So last Monday we announced some extra work that we had done on Sabre. We discovered some massive sulfide, very strong massive sulfide at Sabre, and that's been incorporated into our resource update. And I'll go into the detail of Sabre in a minute. But all the deposits at Fisher East remain open, down plunge and to a degree along strike. So tremendous upside, as I said before. Now, Fisher East has a very strong infrastructure advantage. We're around about 200 kilometres by existing roads to Leinster Cosmos area, where there's existing concentrators. So when we come to develop this project, we have that optionality to at least consider toll treating, and obviously we also consider having our own concentrators, subject to the feasibility studies at that time. And the other important point is that Fisher East is, within a new nickel belt. It's a nickel belt of scale. We've got scalable resources there, very, very substantial resources, and potentially strong upside on growing those resources. We're in an area that hasn't been worked before. Our deposits are undeveloped, and we have 100% ownership of those tenements, and we have complete control of the tenements over the prospective horizon where the nickel is found. So very, very good upside in that sense as well. So just a quick snapshot of the company. We've got 85 million shares on offer, 85.5. Market capitalisation of around about $30 million. We have just over $3 million remaining in the bank. So well funded and strong enterprise value, and we have very strong resource underpinning that. We also show the leading shareholders there currently. So our projects are very much West Australian focused. The company's domiciled in Western Australia in Perth, and run by these gentlemen here. Myself, I'm a geologist by training. The other guys have got geology, company management backgrounds, very strong mining history, all of them. So you can read that at your leisure as well. So the two projects are in the northern part of the Goldfields of Western Australia, around about 450 kilometres north of Kalgoorlie. And as I mentioned before, around about 200 kilometres by existing roads east of Cosmos Leinster. As the crow flies, around about 115 kilometres from our Fisher East project is from Mount Keith, Cosmos Leinster. Fisher East project consists of four existing deposits. Sabre, which is 42.3 kilotons of contained nickel at a grade of 1.5%, completely open, down plunge. Muscat is 45.5 kilotons of contained nickel at 1.9% nickel. That's also open, down plunge. Cannonball is 7.3 kilotons of contained nickel. Now, Cannonball has our highest grade. That's around about 2.8% nickel. And that's only been drilled down to about 300 metres, but that's still completely open down plunge as well. And Camelwood, the first discovery in this field in 2012, that's 39 kilotons of contained nickel at a grade of 2%. And that's also open down plunge. So all our deposits are on the same contact, the same geological horizon. They sit on an 8 kilometre section of that contact. So Muscat, Cannonball and Camelwood are all around about 2 kilometres in a 2 kilometre stretch, quite close together. And then there's a 6 kilometre zone gap down to Sabre between Muscat and Sabre. But you know, that closeness of the deposits lends itself to very much to a potential hub and spoke approach to mining in the future. So great disposition of these projects relative to each other. So Sabre, we put out an announcement on Monday where we did a resource update at Sabre. Now, Sabre is currently 2.9 million tonnes at 1.5% nickel for 42.3 kilotons of contained nickel. And basically, we've got a standalone channelized komatiite flow where the mineralization is basically across the entire top of the channel. So as you can see from that diagram, we've essentially delineated resource across the top of the channel. Now that's only down to 300 metres vertical. Below that, we've only drilled a single hole, which was some 520 metres beneath the existing resource. That hole, MFED 122, got 6.4 metres at 1.3% nickel, and within that zone, that 6.4 metre zone, there was a subset that was going around about 5 metres at 1.5%. So that's the grade of the existing resource. Interestingly, we had a half-metre zone of massive sulfide sitting above the basal intercept there, the 6.4 metres. It was about 2.9 metres away, and outside of that calculation, and it was around about 5% nickel. So our interpretation of that massive sulfide was that it was structurally emplaced and remobilized, and that's a very interesting exploration target. And you know, once we saw that, our eyes lit up and said, right, this is a potential high grade zone in the vicinity. And you know, we'd be very, very keen to put down hole EM on this drill hole, this deep drill hole 122, to see if we can get some targets there. So the other big news that we had for Sabre is that we got a high grade zone along the northern edge of the deposit, and I'm about to show that now. So there's the high grade zone along the northern margin. 4 holes intersected massive sulfide. You know, the bottom one there, MFED 117, got 5.7 metres at 4.5%. Now that also included a 3.7 metre zone running at 6% nickel in massive sulfide. So very, very, and completely open down plunge. So you can see that we've done no drilling underneath it, and we're very, very keen to get in there and understand the true scale of that high-grade zone running down there. Now, we also think there's another high-grade zone running in the central part there, just shown by that red zone. That's also completely undrilled underneath. And the reason we started looking for these high-grade zones in the first place is we had some very strong PGE anomalies in the regolith, the weathered part, above the deposit, shown there by those red and green anomalies in the near surface. That's strong PGE anomaly, up to 600 ppb, platinum palladium. The meaning of that information was, we thought it defined the edge of the channel, the scale of the channel. That's why we drilled out to those margins. And it also shows us that there's high-grade zones up plunge. The anomaly was the up plunge extension of high-grade zones. So we paid particular attention to those areas, and hence we found the high-grade zone. So very, very strong exploration results here, and there's massive upside for us to continue to explore on the Sabre channel. So those high-grade zones are completely open. The channel itself is completely open, and that zone, that 520-metre zone between that deep hole 122 and the bottom of the resource, is completely open and undrilled, and obviously the location of future exploration. So just in cross section, this is what Fisher East looks like. This is what Sabre looks like in cross section down the plunge. So it's a sequence of rocks that are dipping to the east, and the mineralisation is sitting on the contact between some sediments and the komatiite, which is ultramafic lava. Now, this section is overturned, so these rocks are basically upside down. So the sediments would have been on the bottom. They represented a seafloor, and the komatiite flowed over the top of the seafloor and developed into a channel, and the mineralisation is sitting inside the channel. That's the concept, and that's what we're finding. So as you can see, that deep hole 122 is represented here, and then we've got a vast zone in between the resource and hole 122 that's completely untested. And you can see from the diagram that the mineralisation is very predictable as to where it's going to be, and it makes for very straightforward exploration, which we're keen to do. So moving on to Muscat. Muscat's the other separate channel that we're putting a lot of interest into. So here we've got 45 kilotons of contained nickel, 2.4 million tons at 1.9%. Now, why we like Muscat is it's got a very strong and thick high-grade central zone, so shown by that red zone there. So that's where we're getting 16, 17 metre thicknesses running better than 2% nickel. And our view is that represents the base of the channel, the deepest part of the channel, where we've got accumulation of massive sulfide in a basal position, and then disseminated sulfide above it. So that's clearly going to be our focus for future exploration below that area. We've drilled it down to around about 350 metres quite thoroughly, but below that we've got large space drill holes, around about 80 to 100 metre drill spacing, which is too wide to pick that high-grade zone up, and we really need to do infill drilling to pick up that high-grade zone and continue that further down to the final depth of where we've drilled it, which is around about 600 metres. So also on Muscat, what I'm trying to show here on this image is the extent of the channel. So the channel shown there in that lighter green colour, and then the darker green colour in the centre there is basically the area inside the channel and inside the resource where we have not drilled yet, and we think that we've got the ability to find extra resource. So that darker green zone is the focus of our exploration, as well as below that central high-grade channel centre in the main part of the resource. So lots of exploration upside at Sabre. This is just a nickel market overview. I'll skip over this page. Just some peer comparison data. There's around about 7 companies in Australia or Western Australia where they have nickel sulfide resource over 1%. Those companies are shown there. And Cannon's sitting in that group. We're around about, very, very reasonable grade. We're around about what everyone else has got, but we represent probably the cheapest entry price. So very large tonnage, cheapest entry price. So good comparison and well worth your consideration for investment. So that's just the data that's based on. So that's basically it, guys. And thank you. And back to you, Katrina.
Lovely, Steve. Well, that's all that we have time for today. So thank you everyone for joining the Cannon Resources Investor webinar. Should you have any further questions following this webinar, please feel free to reach out via the contact details on the bottom of our ASX releases. We look forward to updating the market in the coming weeks. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Katrina.